The why I argue is a third in a line, and the intention is that we will try and see if we can make a more nuanced dialogue instead of maybe debates with the moderators that kicks us in the butt behind, and see if we through proper argumentation can find out, you know, where the world is going, or where we are in this very complex time. Today's topic is the right to ask why, and it's basically the reason we have asked you and Firas is that it's about, we thought it should be about free speech, and how do we protect free speech, and should there at any time be free speech, but also, you know, how should it be moderated as we do? I mean, you know, in many countries we didn't allow Turkish politicians to go to Holland, and we have also had Muslim speakers not being allowed to come to Denmark to speak because it's too hostile or too harsh in the language. So where is that fine line, and should there be a line, should there be something that should not be allowed? And I would like to ask you, as a human rights lawyer, but also one who has been in many debates about free speech, but also been exposed to terrorism or attacks against you in Krudttønden in Denmark a few years ago. Do you think that everything should be free? Free speech is an ultimate goal.
I think that the last time that when I participated to a debate, it was at Krudttønden on this topic. And the topic was exactly this one: to which extent freedom of expression deserves that one puts his life in danger. And unfortunately we have not been able to go till the end of this discussion because of the gunshot, because of the attack. So I'm happy to resume this discussion I'm thinking today, 2 years later. I am really worried about future of freedom of expression and freedom of speech. First, I would say that I have to say that we have this discussion in a very special moment. 2 days ago or 3 days ago, the British Prime Minister launched the Article 50 procedure to leave EU, the Brexit. Very recently, we had this terrible attack in London. What relation between Brexit and free speech? I would like to try to establish a link. After the Brexit, there is still an EU. We still have European institutions, and they will remain, I have no doubt about that. But do we have Europeans? I mean, European citizens? Isn't Brexit the consequence of the fact that there are people who do not realize what means being European? And as they don't have this feeling of sharing an identity of what is European, being European, they voted for the Brexit. And I think that's important to keep in mind that the freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom of blasphemy is an asset of European civilization, which is now under threat. And it's a fundamental right which is not granted forever. Not only because there is this Islamist fascism, of course there is this Islamist fascism, but terror and anti-freedom movements. But also because there is fear. There is political correctness in the Western camp. Not only in the Islamic world, but in the Western camp. And this political correctness that makes some things impossible to say and to hear is growing. So I think that
so what you think is that it's what prevents us from really free speech and the Hebdo. We also have the Hebdo, you know, the right to make fun of things and be sarcastic, and so that we actually not doing that to that extent anymore out of fear.
I think that we have not succeeded in making clear in the mind of all Europeans that they have a privilege of enjoying a civilization, a way of life, and a place where they have this freedom, and this is simply unique in the world. Nowhere else in the world one could have this freedom. One should say, yes, in the United States there is a full freedom of speech. It's much more nuanced than that, because there is also a lot of political correctness. Of course, the laws, they do not prevent saying you can say everything, but in reality, there are a lot of things that you cannot say, you cannot show, you cannot, because simply it's not correct. And so I think we have politically correctness and morally correct on one hand, the blackmail, the chantage to Islamophobia on the other hand, that restrain considerably, that shrink the space for freedom. So I'm concerned, yes.
Yeah.
In free speech, that one should put good names. The right of blasphemy is a fundamental right, in my eyes. I don't know if you share this view or not, but we have to get prepared to be offended. If we are not prepared to be offended, there is no contradiction, there is no freedom. It's just words. But yes, I think we have the right to say what we think, and but the counterpart of that is that we should be okay, one could be offended, and so what? Doesn't allow violence.
Yes. And I have all the time, like, I know you, I read about you when I've been studying in France.
Ah oui,
Yeah.
alors, on peut faire en français.
And one of this is question: what's make us like to think? One of these things that make us like to continue fighting against the fear, because one of the big things that in front of the democracy and in front of the freedom of speech, how the authority put the fear inside our head and inside our way of thinking, and built like a wall and more wall, and that now we before we didn't feel in this wall, but now we start to feel it physically and psychologically.
You're right. That's a very relevant question. For example, when you realize after the Charlie Hebdo tragedy that maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong, quite none of the American newspaper dared to publish the cover of Charlie in solidarity. What is it if not fear? and or political correctness, which goes very clearly together, and self-censorship, which is step beyond fear. And even in Denmark, a country which I regard as so brave in terms of defending the basic freedoms and freedom of speech and conscience. It was not so easy to find newspapers to reprint this cover. And this would have been, in the world, the best response to the fascists. And yes, I think that the fear is there. It's not only the fear of the attacks, it's the fear of being incorrect or just the fear to offend. But it's like if our society do not anymore accept offense. Of course, blasphemy is an offense.
That's also what I thought, this notion of not wanting to offend anyone.
Yes.
You know, how do you deal with that? Because obviously there's a fear that you will be attacked if you say something, but there's also some humanity inside you say, I don't want to offend people who think like that. I mean, there would always be this balance of not wanting to offend and then want to say something because you have this opinion.
I think that there is a hidden debate behind our debate regarding freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, which is this one. Behind this debate and this challenge, this issue, to know if we are in a society of freedom or not, and if it's weekend or not, there is another one, which I think is the one of what is an individual, what is a person. I will tell you an anecdote. When I was ambassador for human rights, I was in charge of human rights, and in Paris we welcomed every year young people, activists from, I think, 120 countries. It was a big, very, very young, 18, 22 years old. There were a large number of young people coming from all over the world. It was a great event. For 1 week together, seminars, meetings, and it's a very good initiative. And one day I had all these young people in front of me, and I made a speech regarding international justice and universality of human rights and the response, the legal response to the mass atrocities of the 20th century, the genocide, etc. And at the end of the seminar, the conference, I saw a young guy. He was very nervous, sweating, red, and I said, "What's the problem with you?" And he said, "You offended me." I'm sorry, I don't know you, or I didn't intend to offend you. Yes, because you mentioned Cambodian genocide, the Holocaust, and you mentioned the Rwanda, and you mentioned the Armenian genocide. Yes, I make a list of major mass atrocities of the century. And so what? I'm Turkish. Okay, okay. So you insulted my grandfather. I'm sorry, I don't know your grandfather. And I didn't intend to, I'm sorry feeling offended, but I didn't intend to offend anyone, and especially your grandfather, who I don't know. Yes, you offended I'm Turkish, all Turkish are together on this issue. If you say it's a crime against humanity or genocide, we feel concerned. And my grandfather was a soldier at this time, so I told him, okay, let's assume I offended your grandfather. I didn't insulted you. So, but for him, he was not an individual. He was not a person. He was very sincere. I do not mock him. He was very sincere. But he was a part of a group. His identity depended on the identity of the group. And if I expressed criticism against past Turkish policy, for example, if I mentioned this Armenian genocide, he felt personally offended. So he was educated in a way where he was not able to think freely as a person. And I do think that the major issue in our societies is not to recognize persons as community members, as a lot are calling for that. We see that every day, from the Muslim world to the US and Canada. They think in terms of communities. The true freedom is to be educated in a way when the individual can think freely, even against his own milieu. And I think that this very demanding notion of what is an individual, what is a person, lies behind the question of freedom of speech. Because this is what endangers the individual. We will refrain speaking about that because we don't want to be seen as Islamophobic or things like that. So, but there is a distinction between attacking persons for their colors of skin or their beliefs and discriminating them, which is simply racism, which is a crime, and criticizing a way of thinking, criticizing theories, and this distinction is disappearing, is fading out, and I think it's very dangerous. I don't know if I'm clear.
Yeah, no, you are clear, but I have another question, because the attack that happened in Copenhagen, I think it's turning point in your life. Because I'm a filmmaker, so I'm thinking about how it's like a storytelling. I'm trying to tell a story through you. Like, now is a good chance and a good honor now, like to see you as a character in a film, to discover you and
your career. Okay.
So after this, how much you changed as a person? How much the fear started like be apart from your life? Or the awareness start to be from your life?
That's a very good question, and very good because it's a difficult one, and it's a difficult also because it's very good, very relevant. It would be easy to say that after that you can fear nothing and you pass the other side. It's clear that you have a different relation with death. Death is present, and I think that having seen your work, it's also a part of your life. It's a presence, a shadow which will go alongside you like it goes alongside me. And but I wouldn't say that fear is not there. I think that fear is there, but the conscious desire that one should not abdicate to fear. I have to confess that fear is there, yes. Fear can, yes, but also the desire to go beyond fear, to overcome that, and to challenge fear, not to give up. So I say to myself that the courage maybe is not having fear, but it's having fear and doing things in the same time, knowing that it can bring consequences and talking freely, as I spoke about Islamic fascism or things like that. I try to be as free as to be very free, but I know that every time I speak, I address the public, and I say what I think, I take risks. I think I have to.
Why you have to? This is a lot of young people who is now like heard many attacks over the world. Paris again, Brussels again, Germany, Syria every day, Lebanon and Turkey, everywhere attack, and that like more and more like put inside us a lot of fear. and make us like thinking we have to stop in somehow and protect ourselves. But you said you have to speak more. Why it's important to speak more? Why we have to use our voices now more? Maybe we need to learn from your experience, because it's big turning point and it's exactly about terrorism attack. Direct, it will like end your life and at least leave inside you some anger for everything around you. When you walk in the street, look around yourself, or hear your step on the floor. All of this is like the small things, the small details. It's left behind you. Why we have to use our voices?
I think that's a very profound question, and why? And we are in the why, in fact. So you put the finger on the good why. I don't know. There is an easy way to answer this question, which would consist in saying, okay, if I give up, they will win. Yes, of course, but I'm not sure that in the deep truth of a person, I think like that. It's very intellectual meaning. I mean, it's not very. It doesn't come from the inside. There is something that I simply cannot view my life without this freedom. But the truth is that I cannot say that it's better. I cannot encourage people to speak loudly, to be vocal, ignoring the responsibilities and the risks that goes together with that. Who I am to do that? It's a very profound and difficult question. I would say, for me, I feel like at the middle of the river. I have no choice. I have to go to the other end. I started educated and with a very high vision of what should be freedom and also bravery and rivalry, you say in Dutch, for Dutch. And I think that I started like that. I have to continue. I simply, there is a point where intellectual and rational responses and explanations are less and less relevant, and where something else takes place, and something else which deals with aesthetic as well. So I would like, even though the easy and quite automatic answer to your question would be, yes, if I do not express freely, it's like if I give up and it's a victory for the offenders or the terrorists, etc., blah, blah. As we are in a museum, a place dedicated to art, I think that we are not robots, we are men and women, culture, art, irrationality plays a big role in our lives. The way we see ourselves as our lives as if we wrote a novel, the epic way of that, I would say that I would stay on the register not of rational but aesthetic, and say, if I give up, if I don't say what I think, if I don't face the hostility of those who want to silence us, it would simply be ugly.
It's a kind of understand the beauty again.
Yeah, the beauty.
Yeah. Yeah. I have maybe last question. In my film, also like there is a fear in a father who is responsible about something he want to do for what he believe, and between his family, two daughters, and his house and his personal life. Where are you in this after the attack in Copenhagen, and after a lot of visiting? You visit Burma, and you visit the Syrian Turkish border, and you was very close from a lot of these witnesses like about the crime against the humanity, and you saw all of this is what when the government control the life of the people, how much they live like a lot of fear and lost lives. And you travel and leave behind you like a family, people you love, friendship, and all of that. And you go like for the line that could you end your life again, like in the Syrian-Turkish border. Nobody can do this as a diplomatic man. I think a lot of them like they protect them behind the walls, and you do it. What's make you do it? And where are you between the family and the friendship and your personal life and the responsibility about what you want to do for the freedom of speech?
You mentioned the persons I met also and the characters you can see in your film. If I think back to all the persons I met in all the missions I have done in the world, in conflict zones, and victims of this kind of violence, of torture, of enforced disappearances, or lack of simply respect, and people put in prison without fair trial, victims of terror as well. The message I would like to share is that it's exactly, when I think to all these persons, I see one face, not thousands of faces. Of course I see hundreds of faces, but I see only one also. Because they speak, they express their fear, their anger, their sorrow, their courage, with the same expressions, with the same words, in different languages, but it's the language of the eyes is the same. And what I have witnessed is that universality of mankind is not an abstract concept, because in the world today, the opponents of freedom of speech, they say it is your human right is a Western concept invented to colonize the world. And I can tell you that everywhere, from Colombia, Guatemala to Burma, including Rwanda, Congo, Lebanon, and Syria, Chechnya, Algeria, I've seen the face of universality of mankind. It's not human rights as a concept abstract, which is universal. It's mankind that is universal. Men suffering and aspiration for freedom and dignity that are universal. So what inspires, what I saw in your movie is extraordinary characters, people of courage. On one hand, they are very unique, all of them extremely brave. On the other hand, they are universal. They speak by their bravery, by their fear, by their attitude for dignity, by their courage for claiming for more rights, the language of humanity. I don't know if I'm clear.
No, you are clear. It's important.
I think we are running out of time.
Oh.
But I think you gave us a lot of things to think about and thoughts to reflect on, and thank you for coming, and I'm sorry you struggled to get here in time, but thank you.
I have to say it was a privilege for me to be with you,
It's
a great movie. I hope it will be extremely successful in this festival, and I have a lot of questions to ask you about also the red lines and the international policies, but we'll talk later about that.
No, but more the question that important for a lot of people want to hear your story, and also personal. I came with a lot of questions for you because you are from what I read, what I follow. It's inspire character that any filmmaker want to tell your story, because it's important in this time about the fear and terrorism and the freedom of speech and building the wall, because nobody will take this step and broken the wall and go to the place of the dangers and say, hello, welcome, we can change something in this reality, in this black reality, which is like more important now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.